Hello, everybody. My name is Dratnos, and welcome to episode 28 of the Titanforge podcast. Joining me, as always, is my friend Tettles.
Hello.
And
welcome,
my friend...
Dratnos.
Oh, welcome. And my friend Trell.
Hello, welcome.
Welcome to you as well. Nice sweater, Trell.
Thanks, this is my Horde Christmas sweater. I got it last year off of something to do with Blizzard, I can't remember what.
That is is very, very nice, very stylish.
Yeah, stylish.
Yeah, Dratnos, tell them how you really feel.
I feel like it's stylish, that's why I'm saying it's stylish. Anyways, this week we are going to talk about skips in Mythic Plus. We've assembled a compendium of as many of them as we can think of. So hopefully if there's a skip, we have it in this episode. If not, let us know and we can try and cover some next episode that we missed. This is going to be another episode that's fairly hard if you're listening, like if you're audio only. There are a lot of video components to these. We're going to do our best to explain how these skips work for people who can't see, but really the best thing to do is going to be to just watch these clips later yourself so that you can actually see what it looks like. So to facilitate that, again, we're going to make the show notes available to anybody who wants to see them. So if you just look through that Google Doc, there's like 30 clips in here, and you can go and find the appropriate one and see how to do that skip. So that's the plan there. Also, we get to announce now what our plans are for the holidays. So right now we are planning to not do anything live for the next 2 weeks, but we are going to be releasing content weekly still for the next 2 weeks. So we're not quite sure what we're going to do next week yet, but we'll have something and we'll release it on the feeds. And then the week after that, we have a special Titanforge trivia show presented by Squishy, our friend.
That one's going to be good.
That's going to be really fun.
God.
Yeah, we've got like a game show that we're working on. Basically, it's got like a bunch of M+ trivia, questions about like different boss abilities and stuff. And that's going to be awesome. If you're interested in helping participate in that show, for both patrons and non-patrons, we have a bunch of different links in our Discord that you can go to and answer some questions that'll then be used in the show in various ways. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Anyways, those are our plans for the next few weeks. Tettles and Trell, how have you guys been, though, the past couple days? I remember yesterday that you guys were up to some keys. How did those go?
Oh, man. Tettles, you start.
All right, so I guess we started off by doing... Trell was tanking on his Guardian Druid. He died to a solo Tides and a 22 Toldagor. It was definitely a deplete stream.
Oh, man. One Tides did kill my bear at one point in a 22, yeah. Iron Fur does nothing. Also, my healer got LOS for 1 second, so I just died to a solo Tides. That's a really well-designed video game.
And beyond that, how did the evening go?
Well, then Tettle started tanking on his Guardian Druid, and then things got a lot more exciting. I think that might have been his first time tanking on his bear in high keys, right, Tettles?
That was the first time tanking on my bear legitimately ever.
Tettle's the elite druid, by the way.
Probably should stick to PvP as Guardian. Not tanking. Dude, Prot Warrior was way easier. Okay, so I tanked a lot of Season 2 as Prot Warrior. Far easier than Bear. I got fucking one-shot by Fervent Strike, man. I don't even know what to do about that.
Okay, to be fair, it was 3 Fervent Strikes at once, right? Like there were 3 synchronized Fervent Strikes that removed you from the game.
Okay, yeah, exactly. So what am I really supposed to do? Like, do I just pre-SI? Because I can't even get Iron Fur up.
I think you're supposed to just SI on pull on that size pull, yeah.
Sometimes I even like SI and sack from my healer, and like I guess you had a Rusted Druid, so Bark in that case. Probably until you have Thrashes going.
Yeah, I don't know. Or the other thing that I saw you try was just to outrange the Fervent Strikes and have it kill 2 melee at the same time.
that was a power move, honestly.
He bull rushed the second that 2 skeletons started to shield bash, and both myself and Drynos died, I think, at the exact same.
It wasn't me. I was sitting well at range.
It was like hot.
Yeah, you and Morning Trell just got immediately one shot. Yeah.
All I'm gonna say is that Trell flamed me for accidentally quaking him like once or twice, and then proceeded to quake me the whole entire time.
Yeah, Trell like loves to like call out melee for not dodging shield bashes, or for running ahead of the tank and pulling stuff, or for quaking the tank. And just the entire 90-minute experience was Trell doing that to Tunnels. It was so funny. Yeah. To be fair, like if you're used to tanking or whatever and you start DPSing, I think that those are really natural things to do, just like walking ahead of the group.
Yeah, when I DPS for the first time in a while, I like stand in front of the boss. But naturally, I'll like stand right where the mobs spawn and instantly die, you know, because that's what you do as a tank to pick up threat. All kinds of like little muscle memory things like that are hard to.
Yeah. All right, let's get on to our main topic. But first, if you're interested in following along with us on social media, we do have a Twitter at Titanforge WoW. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Titanforge, where you can support the show. And there have been actually a lot of new supporters as well in the past week, so thanks so much to those amazing people. The most generous of the patrons are Ahar of US Proudmoore, Paul, now also of US Proudmoore, King of Skills, VTech, Rock, Zuko, Azza, Ja, Adestria, Falcao, Drunk Swede from Legion of Lemmings Argent Dawn AU, Dranos' Dino Pillow, Ashley Tootsie, Heltari, Demon Hunt XD, and Ishayo. Thanks so much. All right, let's move on to the basics of skips. So I would say by far the most common skip that you'll see in a dungeon, if you have access to different kinds of skips, is the Shroud skip. This does require a rogue, and most skips that are Shroud skips can be done with other means, like you can use invisibility potions to on the whole group to make up for a Shroud. Although the benefit of the Shroud is that the rest of the group can stay mounted and the rogue can sprint, so you can get farther than most invis pots can work, right?
Yeah, in addition to that, rogues can also take an Azerite trait called Footpad, which will give the whole entire group sprint in case you're like inside of an indoor zone or you just need more movement speed. That is honestly a very nice Azerite trait if your rogue does have that one.
Yes. So it's on the same row as like Impassive Visage and Resounding Protection.
Yeah,
which is not like those are the good defensive ones, but it turns out that some of the good rogue Azerite, like Gorak Tull's Mantle, which is one of the overwhelming power shoulders that has a bunch of really good other traits on it, doesn't have Impassive Visage or something. So your options are like Footpad or Self-Reliance. Footpad is usually better for this reason because Self-Reliance just doesn't do anything. So let's watch a basic Shroud skip here, just so that we can see what we're all talking about and make sure we all are on the same page about what's going on here.
You guys are right. You can't push that.
This is the start of the Mother Load, and you'll see the whole group being mounted up. Makes it nice and fast, right?
Yeah, I think this is by far one of the most typical Shrouds that you're going to see in any dungeon. The first part of Mother Load just gets skipped so frequently. So I think that was a pretty standard choice for like what you're skipping, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's also outdoors. Like everyone's mounted in that clip. Some Shrouds have to be done indoors, like in King's Rest, and anywhere in that dungeon you have to do on. But outdoor Shrouds are by far the easiest, in my opinion.
I would agree. Freehold also has a fair amount of easy Shrouds. Like the first Shroud that you do in Freehold is normally super safe.
Right. So Motherlode, Freehold, Temple of Cithralis, these are dungeons where it's common to start with a Shroud. One trick for those that we'll get to a little bit later as well is shrouding before you put the keystone in. And that way you can come into the dungeon with like 5 seconds of Shroud and Shroud off cooldown. And you can use that to extend your duration of Shroud a little bit. That really is helpful in Temple in particular, because that's a long Shroud at the start. Okay, if you don't have Shroud, or if you have like true sight mobs of some kind that need to be pulled to the side, or you need to get in combat and do something, one thing that you can do is you can have a healer, stealth, or invis, and then mass res at the end. So this is one thing that druids are druids are really good at, is when this is called for, they can do this really well. Rest of druids. Here we have
also. Oh, you can just play it. It's also really useful whenever like a healer will invisibility potion while the rest of the group is doing something else or dying. Just them using their invisibility potion sometimes will be more beneficial than wasting those pots. I would say that in terms of like time save, that's not exactly the case, but there can be some niche situations where your healer is going to be the only one that's living and potentially using invisibility potion, or they're just a druid and they're OP.
Yeah, so Temple of Cithralis Eyeball Room is a really good example of this, right? The druid like stays out of combat the whole time and just goes through and masses on the other side, and that gets around, needing to kill all these enemies in there, but you can't exactly shroud this because people need to do the eyeball thing before you actually finish the room.
I think while we're talking about that temple skip specifically, that the group puts the eyeballs in and then the stealth classes go through without being in combat and then res them. I think that only becomes faster on higher keys, like maybe 18 plus, where it takes longer than the 30 seconds you would do just to res everyone and deal with death timers to kill the mob. So like once the mob health is higher than actually the time used for the skip, then you can use the skip.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you're saying that dying is quicker. When would you actually kill the conscripts?
Like, I think I'd kill the conscripts in like 17 or 15.
Okay.
Like kill the orb guardians rather than dealing with the death timer and then waiting for everyone to res.
Okay.
Yeah, because so everybody who dies is 5 seconds on your death timer, plus you need the like 10 seconds to cast the mass res, and then you need everybody to rebuff or whatever, which shouldn't take too long. Like people don't want to get a full food buff after a death like this, but still, that you're approaching a minute of time cost anytime you're doing a skip that does not involve a shroud. That's part of the reason the rogues are so OP, is that every time a rogue skips, it's free, and every time everybody else skips, it costs at least everybody's potion cooldowns or deaths and timer time. So that's bad.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk then about the big kind of skip. This is the full death, the full group death into a battle res. It's kind of the last resort, but it's something that we've had to do against void touched emissaries and in various dungeons actually. And this works almost everywhere. Almost anywhere you might need to skip, you can just do this. This kind of requires you to have 2 classes in your group that can cast res. You need like somebody with a B-res and somebody with a real res, and then the person with the real res dies, and the person with the B-res gets B-reses them into a safe area after you've pulled through all the trash. So an example of this is Shrine of the Storm. After the council boss, we get to this area that has void touched emissaries and a bunch of garbage, and together we can watch what Trell's group does for this.
Or not to get hit by
I guess there's a new technique where you can actually...
Yeah, we'll talk about that, I think, in a bit. Yeah, you can do this skip without a death. But you'll see that the standard strategy is just running through, everybody's in combat, and everybody dies.
Yeah, so the hybrid specs like the Brewmaster Monks, the Shadow Priests, those who can single target res, are normally pretty prime candidates to get battle resed by a battle res class.
Yeah, so this is an easier version of that skip. This isn't sometimes you can be doing these skips in a way where you'll need to get a res off while in combat. Like if you're playing this without a rogue who has vanish or a mage who has invis, like this group has 2 people that can stealth and then be res afterwards. But if you're trying to do this, sometimes you'll get in a spot where you need like the B-res to actually happen while in combat. And that is always a lot sketchier. This instead is a variant that has just a vanish and NGB res afterwards. And there's a bunch of upside to that. One upside as well is that you don't even need to B-res half the time. You can try just the Gnomish Army Knife that is an out-of-combat res but doesn't always work from engineering. This is one of the big reasons why if you are playing a class that can stealth or vanish or feign or whatever, you need to be an engineer in high keys. There's no... Like, it's so good to be able to B-res in this spot.
I mean, or if you have meld, like if you have meld and your whole entire group doesn't have meld, having like a Gnomish Army Knife or an unstable temporal time shifter, which are both, the Gnomish Army Knife just gets you the non-B-res variant, and the unstable time shifter is just like the battle res variant. Just having access to those, if you do have meld as well, is also fairly important sometimes.
Mm-hmm. It's
also
extremely good.
The B-res engineering item can also kill you, so these strats are always last resort. There's a good clip out there of Now and Zmok dying right before the first boss of Freehold and then trying to B-res the other, and then they die and they have to reset the key because the engineering item failed.
Was that with the Gnomish Army Knife or with the B-res?
The unstable time shifter, the B-res.
Interesting. Yeah, I've like never had mine fail. I don't know. I must be very, very lucky.
I've seen it a couple times. It's pretty rare in my experience, but just know that when you randomly die trying to B-res someone, it might be the engineering item.
Okay, so those 3 are kind of the default skips, right? It's Shroud, Healer stays out of combat and masses, or you B-res somebody on the other side and they mass everybody or they res everybody. Those are the kind of the 3 default types of skips. The next thing we're going to spend the rest of the episode doing is telling you about specific skips, including Warlock skips and including different places that you can do various, skipping of things that should not be skippable, that people have figured out how to skip. So that will be the rest of the show. But first, let's do our tip of the week segment, where we tell you a little tip about something that will help you in WoW in some way. My tip of the week is to stock up on mono-hardened stirrups. Not even stock up on this, just be aware of this item. This item is a blacksmithing item that allows you to use stuff while mounted. If you are interested in doing any quest ever, or like going in Nazjatar, questing anything there ever, this is so good, the mono-hardened stirrups. I cannot overstate just how good this item is. It'll change your life. So buy these next time you're going to quest ever, and you're going to be much happier.
Flurry could just be a druid.
Man,
Run around a travel form. Let's fucking go.
doing quests on my druid and then doing them on another class after is so frustrating.
Yes, I'm sure. Dude, it's so nice. Like, whenever I have to go on my Demon Hunter and do quests, it also frustrates the shit out of me because I have to dismount and stuff, and then I'm in combat and I can't remount and I have to kill mobs.
Yeah, it is real. Like it's like being a druid versus not being a druid. These stirrups, it's insane.
This is pretty good.
All right, Trell, what is your tip of the week?
My tip of the week, I thought was appropriate for this week since it's Teaming Tides week, is the Emissary of Tides will destroy your tank on higher keys. If you're a Havoc DH, you can taunt it with Blur and tank it in a less damaging fashion than your actual tank, which I think is bad game design, but that's actually a really good play. Any slows and stuns on the Emissary itself can help quite a bit. Like if you can keep it out of range of your tank while they're fighting a boss or while they're tanking the rest of the pack, it's really good, while the Tides is also taking damage. If you can stun it with a big stun like Hammer of Justice or Fell Eruption, it's also super important if you have that available.
Yeah, Prot Warrior Conflict and Strife Major, also extremely good. Like, if you're a Prot Warrior and you're playing that, just make sure you're not getting hit by the Tides when it's rooted. It is very, 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 very good. So, good way to handle that Emissary, because it does so much damage to your tank.
I brought this one up this week because I actually did die. I mentioned it earlier, but I actually died to a solo Tides hitting my bear last night in a 22 because a Quake overlapped, and it actually just killed me. Through playing correctly, I was doing my rotation, but it actually killed me.
Yeah, that's...
It was really funny, I must say.
You do hate to see that. All right. Speaking of things you hate to see, Tettles, what is your tip of the week or clip of the week, as you've subverted this segment for you?
You can just fucking play it, man. I don't have anything to say.
All right, here we go. This comes from Taldazar yesterday with Tettles, the Guardian Druid.
All right. Pull.
Okay, we go.
All right, pulling 3, 2, 1.
Yep. We're good.
Man.
Waiting.
Don't touch them.
Holding.
Don't touch them.
I kick.
We're good.
Oh
Lusting.
This was attempt number 4 at this poll.
Yes.
Man, I like the 1 second value on the lust.
Oh,
I know exactly.
Yeah, we went to this poll like 6 times or something. And Taldazar with Tettles tanking. It was something
Holy
different
shit.
most times as well. But that one was one of the funniest. The bear just goes down.
At this point, all the DPS are like really scared. We're all like standing a really far amount away from the pack, waiting for Tettles to get threat. I'm like watching for a second thrash, like, is he done it yet? And then I finally go in and he instantly dies.
Yeah, I hit my bloodlust, like, and this is a pull that we lusted twice, I think. But this is one of our lusts, and it did not do anything. It's not good. There are a lot of clips made from those runs with Tettles Guardian and
Fuck.
yeah, Shift playing Arcane. I played Elemental that time, which was not a meme, but the next dungeon I played Subtlety, which was. So that was fun. Anyways, good times among friends. Got my weekly key on my shaman, so can't complain. Nice 7 lust to Taldazar, as Ian Hazakostas intended, I'm sure. Okay.
It was only 40 minutes, please.
It was roughly 7 lusts, give or take. Let's move on to our to our main topic once again. Advanced skips. we have a bunch of specific skips that we're now going to show you. Let's start off by, I think, one of the things that people know the least about, which is void touched emissaries and actually skipping around them. So back in the good old days when void touched emissaries first came out, they were distractible and you could use that to shroud around them. That has been fixed. They are now no longer affected by the spell distract, but they are still pseudo distractible by combat. So there are a number of ways to skip voids that mostly involve like a rogue getting in combat and facing them away from the group, and then the rest of the group running by, or the tank getting in combat and facing it away from the group, and the rest of the group running by in shroud. Those are ways. Let's watch one way here from Trell's stream in a freehold as they skip a void touched emissary before the bridge.
They skip
Actually,
two.
skip 2 in this clip.
Okay.
Yeah.
One go.
Yeah, here we go.
If it's possible.
Oh yeah, void weak.
Ready, set,
This guy's set.
go.
So Trell faces the void away, and the rest of the group can just run around on the other side.
No combat.
We're good. Okay, I'm coming.
And then Trell is coming with them because he needs to help skip the next one.
There's 2 this week.
Yeah. The rest of the group's still out of combat here.
Give it another
2
shroud.
rogues, so 2
Oh, we don't,
shrouds. But they don't have the other one here.
I don't know how we.
Yeah, this second one, we
Taunt
just
it
need to
for
get
the
our
past
healer Jamal
Yeah.
by the
You good?
void emissary. So I face it away. I taunt it. He has 3 seconds to
Very
get
far.
behind it before the void turns again. And luckily he made it.
It's not based off the 3 seconds. It's
Ready,
it
set.
ticks aggro and ticks threat every so often.
I do agree that it does the pulse, and can put people in combat every time it does its like threat pulse. But if it's faced away during those 3 seconds, I don't think it's possible for anyone to get threat going by just for that 3-second window of time.
Okay.
Based
Yeah,
on my
I think it's a little
experiments.
bit of both. I have never seen it get in combat with somebody while it's been taunted and faced away from them. So I think the facing matters. I think sometimes it'll still just tick threat on people behind it if it's not taunted. This is a very, very useful way though to get around void touch emissaries. However, very difficult to do in an uncoordinated group, right? Like usually shrouds are required for this, so you need rogues or stealth classes to get around the rest of the pack, and you need like a tank who knows how to turn these things to the side. Now it's worth noting that a rogue can also do this job of facing the void away with like parry and cloak. You can tank the rest of the pack and face the void away and fight it that way. You won't have the taunt on it, so it'll be a little bit more sketchy. But if the group stays far enough away, it's usually still fine. And then the rogue can like hook away and vanish, and you don't even have to have anybody die. Very, very good strategy. It's not easy though. It's not easy to. It's never free or guaranteed that you're going to skip any void touched emissaries.
Actually, the only reason we even do that there in that freehold is to just like hopefully prevent a few extra deaths on the timer, because otherwise that would just be a full last resort battle res skip like we showed in Shrine, where we just hope that someone gets the battle res before the whole party dies.
All right, let's move on to an Ataldazar, where we'll start off. We're okay with skipping this wall of text here. I think we did a pretty good job of explaining what was going on with the voids. All right, so on to Ataldazar. One area where it's very common to do skips is before and after Volcall, the Volcall room, because the double honor guard pack is not remotely realistic to fight. We've developed many different ways of skipping this trash throughout the years. One of the most common is, of course, just shrouding through it. That's easy option, but you need to go in and out, so you'll need to, unless you have 2 rogues, you need to come up with a skip that is not a shroud skip for one of those 2. So options include like the tank pulling to the side and dying, the rogue pulling to the side and vanishing. The rogue can actually even sap one mob, blind another, and walk on top of the blinded mob to get in combat with it. And then the rest of the group can just walk next to those 2 mobs. The other 2 mobs won't pull that are far away. And then once everybody's through, the rogue can vanish to drop combat. So that's another option to deal with that pull. Or you can use Ring of Peace to get everybody by without really needing to do anything fancy. So here is some video footage of this from Trell's YouTube.
Okay, I didn't.
In prison.
Okay.
Imprison and Paralysis go out. The Honor Guard here is paralyzed, so that's the one they need to stay far away from. But they use the Ring of Peace to knock it as far away as possible. And then the Imprisoned mob they can walk just right next to.
Yeah, and that's always going to be on the honor guard, because the honor guard can't be sapped or caged, right?
Yeah,
Right.
it's an undead mob.
Yeah,
so you
so-
have to use pair or blind.
Mm-hmm. So you sap or imprison
Or repentance.
the Witch Doctor, and you do a pair or something to the other one. Now, sometimes there's a Void Touched Emissary in that group. If there's a Void Touched Emissary in that group, you have to do, like, you can try and do a fancy facing it to the side thing, or you can just get through and do a B-Res, or you can do what I call the wacky water skip. This is something that they've tried to fix a couple times. It's how to get around the side here through the water. So let's watch this little footage here. Up on the left side, if you can get here and you get on top of these rocks, you can then find an invisible wall and jump against it to land out here in the water. And then from there, you move to the side until you get around another invisible wall, and then you're able to actually get to the platform and get into Volkal's room this way. So this is an option that is still in the game. They've moved around some extra invisible walls in there.
They've tried to fix that twice, I think.
Yeah, but it is still there. It's completely ridiculous, of course, but it does work. Okay. We've also recently discovered some more fun skips in Ataldazar.
Yeah, dude, you with the fucking ripple in space yesterday, I was like, what the fuck is happening?
So this is a gateway version of the skip. At the start of the dungeon, this comes from Rad's stream. At the very start of the dungeon, you can gateway up to the right and get around this way. So here's our footage from Rad doing this. They just drop a gateway, everybody can travel up here out of bounds, and then you can just walk around the side and get to the Volkal room this way, and avoid pulling any trash regardless of where the emissaries are. Unfortunately,
This skip's funny looking.
Yeah, you do go under the scenery there a little bit, and you come around the side, and you fall down into Volkal's water on the other side, and you can pull Volkal as the first thing you do in the dungeon. This is extremely silly, of course, and likely to be fixed very soon. The very good news as well is that you can do this even if you don't have a Warlock in your group. So here's how you do this with Ripple in Space. This is from my stream. You can talent Ripple in Space or whatever, and then you can cast your Ripple up on the side here, but it's important that you click on the right spot. Otherwise, you might accidentally fall through the world instead of actually rippling where you want to and end up underneath the world. So you need to get the right click here. This is an example of getting the wrong click. But with the right click, you can land in the same spot as that gateway and be in good shape.
Okay, so something that's also important to note is that since this is an out-of-bounds skip, there is a chance that you would get banned for doing this because they don't enjoy out-of-bounds fuckery in their dungeons.
Yes, yeah, it's an important discussion is that technically this is a lot more suspicious than the other skips that we'll be talking about today. There is a chance that they would take action against it. In practice, they have not done skips for people doing stuff like that in M+ really ever, right? Like M+ is kind of a Wild West in terms of the WoW banning approach, right?
Yeah, I don't think they would, but it is possible. It's like a gray area for them. Like one dev could just decide that's not okay, you know.
They banned somebody for this like weird ass seesaw thing inside of Eternal Palace recently. There was this like demon hunter who'd like wall jump up and then went straight from Savara's room to Ashara, and they banned him for that.
Right, but
for making a YouTube video about it.
That's Eternal Palace, right? Eternal Palace is a raid. They care about it in raids. They don't care about M+. That's my, at least so far, they don't ban for like skipping Shadow Zool, for skipping Ludwig for 2 months, like for the Templus Ithralis Mythic 0 and then do the dungeon backwards thing. Like all of these things have had 0 bans to my knowledge. So that's, you know, I think you're safe to do these, but it's certainly a good disclaimer that like you're not 100% safe if you're skipping out of bounds.
I think that's right. I think you are probably in the clear because this is not like the most egregious shit I've ever seen, but you're not like exploiting the game to do something silly. You're just using a Warlock gate to walk to Volkal.
Right. Yeah. Like I don't know. I mean, it's a little sketchy, but it's almost certainly fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about the final skip today of Ataldazar, which is the Wild Charge past the middle pack skip that you may have seen some clips of Tettles attempting at various times.
Hey, I did it The second time I attempted it.
Yeah. And then hit a spider.
Shut up.
Here is our skip here of the middle pack with Wild Charge, assuming YouTube would like to load, which is always a little bit questionable.
Oh no, not this again.
Yeah,
Last week we had major technical issues.
this I'll refresh. Sometimes YouTube on like longer videos has been a little bit sketchy for me. I've tried to have fewer tabs open, so I thought that would maybe fix it, but it looks like there's a chance that it is not fixing it.
Get wrecked.
Yeah, you hate to see it. Okay, maybe we can find like a clip from Tettles' stream actually, because there's even a clip that I'm thinking of him trying this, and then we can yoink that.
While I was looking for that, I wanted to mention a lot of these skips do involve one player getting in combat with a CC'd mob. And like certain CCs don't put you in combat, like Sap and Imprison, but you have to be aware that all the other CCs do. So Paralysis, Frost Trap, Polymorph, Hex, all those mobs will put the first player that comes within range of the mob in combat, but then no other players until that first player drops combat. So you usually want that first player to be a rogue or a mage.
Mhm.
Or anyone with the ability Shadow Meld that's very overpowered.
Yeah, only Sap and Imprison are out of combat CCs. Everything else is an in combat CC. Repentance used to be an out of combat CC in Legion, but now it's an in combat CC in this expansion, and I'm not really sure why. And I don't know if Blizzard even is really sure why. I think it just sometimes it'd be that way.
I should also add that hunters can feign death that
Yes.
mob's combat as well.
And anybody, of course, can meld it, but that would be too lucky to be playing Shadow Meld. Far too lucky. Okay, let's show this Wild Charge skip here. We have a clip from Tettles' stream. Actually, let's watch this whole clip. Let's watch this whole clip. It's a good one.
Go to the blue.
So here's what the Wild Charge skip theoretically looks like.
No, we're not going that way.
Sometimes there's a little oopsie.
Shut up. Oh my god, I fell.
It seems as if we've fallen. It's depleted anyways.
I'm coming.
So this is the week where the middle pack is stopped because there's an emissary in it.
there.
Yeah, 2 out of
Next
3
season,
weeks,
this won't be
right?
a thing, but
2 out of 3 weeks that middle
Yeah.
pack stops because of an emissary.
Wait, can I get Trell up there? Does that work?
Yeah, so this is attempt number 2 of doing that Wild Charge. Again, you're just kind of trying to move on to the snap spot so you can get a high enough altitude.
Agree with that.
Somebody gets on your back.
Take this rest as soon as you get
Please
it.
hurry, Trell. Well, you have to be on that. You have to be on the higher
Yeah.
lip. You can't be on the lower
If I lose my
ledge.
staff, I'll be so
Yeah.
sad. We gotta go.
very nice. Very nice.
And you Wild Charge up there.
Trust you
But
completely.
no matter what you do, you'll still have to deal with these spiders.
I don't know what it is. Like there wasn't even a spider there where Tuttles walked, and he actually still died.
Yeah, you really do hate to see it.
I don't understand. Okay, I literally died to spiders that are just like not there so frequently. Is it something to do with like High Mountain Torn model, or is it like the spiders are just?
I think they're just a little bit ahead
Distinct
of
from
where
the
they.
game?
Yeah, I think you need to.
Well, no, I'm literally like walking. Okay, so they're like down the stairs and they're below me, and then I'll walk where they were, and then they're behind where they are, and they're not ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you walked behind a spider and still got hit by it. Oh no.
Yeah,
This is fairly close. You definitely walked very close to a spider.
then walk into. Okay, whatever. Anyways. There's been far more questionable ones where I'm just like, okay, this is fucking stupid.
Yeah, it certainly is something
It's
you
the
do hate to
Tettles
see.
effect.
Yeah, the Tettles effect. That's true. Okay, let's move on to the Freehold. Freehold is a dungeon that has gateway skips available. Gateway skips, heroic leap skips. There are a lot of places in dungeons where you can go over impassable terrain with a skip like that targets the ground at the other end. So gateway, heroic leap, grappling hook, those are all effects that will work there. Let's watch one of these gateway skips at the start of Freehold. This is a really nice way to get around this first enforcer, and it's probably the best way if you do have a warlock. This comes from Shelly's YouTube, who is the premier warlock of Mythic Plus. You can just gateway onto the bridge, the whole group can go that way, and you've easily skipped the first enforcer without having to do any vanish stuff.
Sometimes there is an emissary that's nearby there though that can get pulled.
Yeah,
so
if there's a
you
void
may
touched
have
emissary on the left there, you can't do the gateway skip without pulling the void. A common strategy if you don't have a warlock, which is, sometimes your group won't have a warlock most of the time after you actually get your health stones before the key starts. And when that's true, you will instead usually have the rogue just pull the enforcer to the side and then vanish after the rest of the group gets through. That's the more common way to do the skip. But if you have a warlock, you get access to this very good version of the skip. That I mean, you should do this if you have a warlock. And a common
definitely.
MDI strategy is for the warrior at least to heroic leap through on that same line so that they can just move forward and start pulling ahead of the group. And then the rogues can just stealth through, and the DH or the DK can get shrouded through, or druids can stealth through, all that stuff. All different options to get through there as quickly as you want. Worst case, you can always pull that enforcer, but it's pretty inefficient to fight it by itself, so then you'd want to pull it with other stuff. Usually we've decided that it's better to just get through there without pulling that. It's a little faster. It's a little inefficient to fight it, so that is why we skip it usually. Okay, the next freehold skip is another gateway skip that we want to show off here. Again, from the same Shelly video. This is really good right at the end of freehold. It's to get into Harlan Sweet's room. You can do the exact same skip. If YouTube loads. Man, okay, I should start only doing Twitch clips. You can use this exact same strategy, though, to gateway or heroic leap, pass where the enforcers, or pass where the ravagers are, right up into Harlan Sweet's room. It's the exact same thing, but it works there too.
Yeah, and with that, you can also use heroic leap or grappling hook in order to be able to get up there, and then you can utilize wild charge from druids, human form wild charge to also be able to jump to a person who's sitting there.
Yeah, so here's that footage. That gateway just goes right up, and then you can, the ravagers can die to their painful motivation or whatever, or you can even do this without fighting them at all, and then you can just skip right all the way up to Harlan Sweet. And get around. This can be really nice actually if there's a void touched emissary. Sometimes there's a void touched emissary in the way there, and so having your group heroic leap through, human form wild charge through, and vanish through or whatever can get you past it without getting in combat. Or of course you can do it with the warlock gateway.
Yeah.
Okay, the next thing we'd like to show off in freehold, the final actual hard skip to execute or special skip you can do is a slow fall skip. This is, to my knowledge, the only really used slow fall skip in the game. There was also a sky step slow fall in Shrine that people used to use, but that one has really fallen out of favor ever since the first couple months of the expansion. Here is the slow fall skip again into Harlan Sweet's room. So this is a mage, a priest, or you can use a potion to slow fall yourself. It's Sea Mist potion, right?
So we don't use in this
clip.
clip.
I've used a Sea Mist potion before.
In this clip, he's not using slow fall. He's just riding a druid, but the same concept comes with a slow fall. You can walk up to that top ledge where he is and use a slow fall to be able to just jump across.
Yeah, so this is done as a wild charge, but the exact same trajectory is what you'd use with a slow fall, and you can get through as well. You can also do it with I think even the Mechagon punch card that deploys you a parachute, I think will be enough to get through as well.
I don't know about that, maybe.
Yeah.
Because you want to be mounted. You want to be mounted for the slow fall, right? Does the parachute proc while you're mounted?
You mount and then you jump and then you unmount and you still have the momentum, right?
Yeah.
So it does work, but
you do have to have some kind of movement speed there. Like I would use a Sea Mist potion if I was solo and then roll, so I get mega speed going across the gap. But if you have something else like wild charge or mount jump, like Jarnos was just saying, that works too.
Mm-hmm. Lots of options to get through there. The main, again, point to that is that you need to climb up the little tower to the side there by where the second group of Ravagers spawn, and then you can jump over to Harlan Sweet's room that way. All right, King's Rest. King's Rest has a Skystep Shroud that is fairly common, especially in Season 3. We didn't used to do this too much back in Season 2, but in Season 3, this is the Skystep Shroud, where you'll basically skip through the whole bridge. Now, there's almost always a Void Touched Emissary in the way here, either at the start or the end of this, so usually this is going to involve a death at the end, but the main point is to Skystep and Shroud and get past as much of the trash as possible so that you don't die in the skip. There are a lot of skips like this as well that even if they're not really shroud skips, like you're going to do a B-res at the end, if you shroud the first half of them, it makes them a lot safer. We'll see this is a common theme, actually, with skips.
Yeah. And in addition to that, if you do have Shadow Meld, of course, you can live towards the end of these skips as long as you are not the person who is typically tanking the mobs. If you're like one of the DPS, you just run all the way through and then you meld at the very end.
All right, the next skip we'd like to show in King's Rest, that I showed a little early there, is the Shadow of Zul skip. This is a very, very, very questionable
Time
skip.
effective.
Yeah, it is extremely time effective, and it's extremely, like, it allows you to defeat the dungeon on high fortified in a way that would otherwise be very, very scary, because Shadow of Zul is the scariest mob there. Step 1 of this skip is to just shroud around Shadow of Zul. Getting around Shadow Zul in some way, shroud, or you can actually get around without shroud by the rogue can just walk through and set up a seesaw on the other side, and other people can jump on and off.
That shit's OP.
Yeah,
The seesaw is funny.
Or DHs can just double jump over a brazier on the side. Anyways, point number 1 is getting past Shadow of Zul without getting in combat with it. Worst case, you can just have whoever stealth through, and then people die and get masked on the other side. So that is an option to get through. Step 2 is the fun part. This is a Demon Hunter special. The Demon Hunter can get on this brazier right before the Dazar room, and then from there they can double jump up onto this pillar, and then from there they can jump over the gate in the middle and activate Dazar, and then from there you're home free. They can pull Dazar and die to it. They can pull Dazar without generating any threat, and then run to the wall. And then somebody else can auto-attack through the wall to pull threat, and then pull Dazar out of the room and reset the boss that way. That's a really common way to do this without having any deaths. And then after Dazar resets, the gate opens, and you can just fight him without ever fighting Shadow of Zul.
Do you know what most people use to tag Zul? Like yesterday, I did the skip, and I was like, I'm just going to purge him. But I didn't really think about what people were using. Because purge is 0 damage, right?
Purge, proxy pull, or
body pull, yeah.
You can taunt, but then you have to wait till taunt falls off for somebody else to hit. So I purge is the good one. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd just like to note that this skip is so common because the Shadow of Zul mob is still so overpowered a year and a half into this expansion that nobody in their right mind would pull him if they have another option. He requires every single cooldown from the group, defensive and offensive, to defeat on fortified. And on top of that, on high keys, the tank probably still has to kite like around 40 or 30% if they're not a Vengeance Demon Hunter.
Well, in addition to that, the dungeon's timer is just entirely too tight relative to the HP that the mobs have. Honestly, the whole entire bridge pack needs like a 10% chop on their health. You can't merge any of the bridge packs together because of how poorly they're designed. So you're forced to do them like one pack at a time, and that's just like not feasible even with a 42-minute timer. Like whenever they bumped up the timer by 3 minutes from 39 to 42, they still didn't fix the issues with the dungeon. They just added 3 more minutes.
Yeah,
so much damage is still so overtuned on like every mob in the bridge area.
King's Rest just fundamentally does not scale well because you can't find ways to pull multiple things at once like you can in other keys. In other keys, the solution to the dungeon has 10% more health is to do 10% less pulls by combining a pull. And in King's Rest, it's just not feasible to do that. Also, just that Shadow Zul is just so massively overtuned that skipping it is always a good idea if you can.
Well, Council is also like almost 2 bosses worth of time spent. That's like, once you start getting to, it's literally like 6 minutes long sometimes, 6 or 7 minutes. Like, obviously, we had the fucking meme 8-minute Vic Goth, but like, Council being 6 minutes is also not really.
I think one of us added up their health at some point this last week, and they had like, 150% health total of other bosses at the same key level, something like that.
Yeah, I think it's some ridiculous percentage of extra health now. It would be reasonable. It just scales so much, like it scales even more nastily, right? With Tyrannical. Okay, let's move on to the Shrine of the Storm. Shrine of the Storm has a bunch of different skips in it. We have many different cool skips in here. The first and most common of them is the first living current that would otherwise be in your path. The one, not the first one in the dungeon, but the second one in the dungeon that's hanging out, channeled by those 2 attendants. It's very common to shroud past this. Here's some footage, actually back from season 1, from Method's YouTube channel, of how to skip this, back before everybody actually knew how to do it. So you basically just turn on your shroud, and you can just hug by the wall here and slip past. Distracting the current is helpful, distracting it away, but actually not mandatory for the skip either. And then you just get down on the side here, you slip past, and you're good. The most important thing is to make sure that you don't have too far of an angle out. If you actually jump out too far, you'll get in combat with that living current. So you need to make sure you have a nice sharp angle against the wall, and you're mostly running towards the side and not out the way that you're jumping.
Yeah, you got to get it tight.
Oh, okay, Tuttles.
Man.
There's lots of degrees of that skip. Like we said, you can do it without stealth at all. If you just jump in the right direction perfectly over the gap without touching the ground. You can do it without distract if everyone's really careful the same way. But like the very safest option is to pull shroud and distract the current away. And then everyone passes just normally. You can walk like on the ground behind the Ellie even if you want.
And there is a way to do this with Warlock Gateway as well. We would be remiss to not mention the Warlock utility here. Warlock Gateway works through the exact same way. Hang on, let me reopen this. Stupid YouTube, man. Okay, this time for sure. Yeah, here it is. Basically, you can just gateway and click down at the end there, and everybody gets through that way. This also works with Heroic Leap and with Grappling Hook and stuff too. Those are all options to get that same skip. So it's all the same, and that gets you through without any difficulty.
You can actually walk around the alley around the left side if you really want to, but no.
Yeah, you can jump by.
What are they like? What are the mobs that are over there? Like attendants, right?
There's attendants, spiritualists, and a patrolling Templar. You'll probably get.
Yeah,
yeah. You have to pull the patrolling
combinations of
Templar
those.
before. Yeah.
Does Ripple in Space work too? Yes, Ripple will also get you down there if you are running that. That is allowed.
Imagine running Ripple Major.
Ripple Major is actually not like, it's not that bad. I don't know. It gives you a good amount of stats. The minor part of it does, and it comes with a 10% DR pretty often.
Don't you have to move like 25 yards in like 5 seconds or something like ridiculous?
Yeah, cast roll. You're done. That's mission accomplished.
What if you're a caster?
What if you're a caster? I don't know. You get life gripped or whatever. Bang.
Yeah, I don't know about Ripple. I think Ripple is
Thank you.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, if it's doing some OP skips for you, it's reasonable. Honestly, I think that rippling to Volcall on like a really bad week on the right makes a lot of sense, and then you can just die and go out of the dungeon and switch to something other than Ripple.
I don't hate that idea.
That I think might be a time save, but otherwise Ripple is probably on par with bringing a Warlock.
I mean, part of the issue would be that you can't get the fucking gate open.
Well, you can. Yeah, you run down to open as you're dying, you go and click the lever, and then you die and go out the side and switch out to something else.
If you can face tank them for that long,
your whole group is doing it. It's easy.
Oh, right, that's fair. Never mind. You're right.
Yeah,
it's not just the tank, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about Windspeaker Heldis, and actually about Runecarver Sorn as well. Windspeaker Heldis and Runecarver Sorn have a very weird behavior, which is that they don't have True Sight until they are pulled. As soon as they've been engaged in combat one time, for the rest of the dungeon run, they will have True Sight. This is an effect that contributes to Shrine sucking to run back on. Like, after you've skipped these things, if you accidentally get in combat with them once, the run back is just way worse. So that is an annoying part of it. But the good news is that you can shroud them until you've pulled them once. So we do encourage that. Another cool thing you can do with Windspeaker Heldis is pull the 4 initiates around her without actually getting in combat with her. So this is what this looks like. It's from Tettles' stream of just going around the side. You get a nice little angle here over on the left, and then you just pull one of the initiates, and the others will run by, and they're not actually linked to Heldis, so as long as they don't walk on top of her, as long as you have the right angle, they will not pull, and you can just get the initiates by themselves.
I think you're also able to taunt the far one and snap it into the goblet spot as well, but I've never done that, so I didn't want to really try.
It's the initiative that he's closest to here. Like, he body pulled that one that started running first. If you just taunt that one or tag it, from farther back, the mobs do the same thing, or they'll snap. By the way, if you're a tanky character, you can snap.
Yeah, that is definitely a good thing to do. Now, if those 4 are dead, you can get by Heldis without Shroud by doing a mount jump. We don't have footage of that, but the mount jump would just be from this little... There's 2 little square protrusions next to where Heldis is, and you can get from one to the other with a mount jump if Heldis is dead. It's a little spooky. There's a chance you'll die. There's a chance somebody will die. As long as the healer can do it, it's not too bad. They can just mass whoever falls down. If the healer does die, you have to get an awkward angle to actually res them successfully. So that mount jump is a good way to do this if you only have 1 rogue, because you'll usually want to save your Shroud for Runecarver Sorn and not use it for Heldis. But if you have 2 rogues, you can Shroud Heldis and Sorn. And then, yeah, Sorn is just a standard Shroud. Just make sure you've never gotten in combat with him so he doesn't have True Sight. The Guardian Elemental on the bridge is another mob that we like to skip. This is something that is typically a rogue job. The way that one will work is that the group will hang out over at the edge of where the 4-pack near there was. The rogue will pull the Guardian Elemental, run back, cloak and parry or whatever to avoid dying. The rest of the group will run through, and then as the Guardian starts channeling Shipbreaker Storm, the rogue will grappling hook through and vanish, and you'll have skipped the Guardian Elemental that way. Those are the 3 mini-bosses here in Shrine. Generally, all 3 are skipped these days.
Okay, so do you think that you ever play, like, when would you actually play one of these mini-bosses? I think Heldis is probably the most playable, right? You just play it into accuracy?
On teaming, pretty much, in my opinion.
Okay, that's fair.
You have to pull the entire dungeon.
Yeah, teaming is all about pulling extra stuff in Shrine. You really, like, Shrine, normally there's like 5 bad things you don't want to do, and you have to pick 1. And on teaming, you have to pick like 4 of those 5 bad pulls to do. So it's a lot worse. And Heldis certainly makes the cut there. Pulling her into boss in weeks when that's safe is a good strategy, but that kind of turns off in the really high keys because it starts to be spooky, even on good affix weeks. Okay, let's talk about the skip to... that death skip we showed you earlier? It can be done without a death using Druid Travel Form. So here is our footage for this. This is from Bubba's stream. It is a travel form mount skip. So the tank gets on the Druid's back. The Druid needs to run by the side here. And then there's a snap spot that all the mobs will try and get to as they snap to the tank there. And because those mobs get airborne and are now evading, they will eventually reset, and everything will drop combat with you. So the important thing here is tank on the Druid's back, and Druid in travel form, and then just all the mobs will reset because some of them are in this evade spot. So we'll watch... Yeah.
Another important element of this is you have to have a lot of movement speed after you do go into that room. You have to be able to get up towards the top of the bridge very quickly, otherwise the mobs just won't evade reset. Like the Depth Bringers will just continue to pulse combat and then pull the mobs out of the evade spot. Utilizing stuff like Ursul's Vortex or Ring of Peace inside the doorway to keep the drowned Death Bringers really far away from you is very helpful.
Basically, everyone has to be... So when a mob snaps like that and the tank is not on top of the mobs, at a certain point in time, they'll all like attempt to reset aggro and positioning. So at that moment, the key is that the whole group has to be out of range of the mobs and up the ramp. So that I think it's like 15 or 20 seconds after they snap to the spot that happens.
Yeah,
it feels like in my memory at least. I've never actually timed it.
It's like 17 seconds, and you'll just like drop combat. Yeah, it's fairly quick.
Every enemy that's currently in combat with you as well will also attempt to reset. So, or at least non-boss enemies. I think boss enemies might be special, but any non-boss enemy you're fighting, I think, will try and reset, and that's what you're using here. You're using the fact that everything will drop combat with you to get through here.
The key mob that you have to have in the spot, though, is the Ritualist.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have the Ritualist, and I don't know what it is. It may be like the Void Seed or some shit that she's casting on you, and she's just evade resetting the whole entire pack. But that, I've tested it a little bit, and that is the absolute most important mob to have in that spot that gets snapped into there.
The question...
She actually did this really well, too. She ran through, like, perfectly aggroed all 3 Ritualist packs and didn't get meleeed by a single thing. And just, like, ran over the spot, made it look super easy. But I bet that's kind of hard for most people first learning that, is you don't really want to get meleeed as a Resto Druid. You're going to die. And
you will never get meleeed if you have the tank on your back, the
Yeah.
threat priority is always the person riding the mount over the person who's actually the mount.
I actually did not know that.
Yeah, it's
That's good
it's
to know.
interesting two-seater behavior, but that is always how two-seaters work. So that's part of why you put the tank on the druid's back instead of having the tank like getting threat afterwards or something.
Something that's never been tried yet. Do you think that you could use like repair mounts or different two-seaters, like a
I
what
bet
is
like
Drake?
the rocket, the sandstone drake,
Yeah.
those all I bet would also work. The druid one is nice because it's a fairly small model, so that might help you getting the spot there. So like maybe if you need the model to be similarly sized to that one, you could use like the rocket, but not the big caravan brontosaur or whatever, the long boy.
Yeah, I haven't tested it with other stuff yet, but realistically, the only reason that this works is because those stairs are like fake in the corners.
Mhm.
The other stairs up top also are fake in the corners, and you can knock mobs through that. So I guess be kind of careful.
Yep, I've also fallen. You can fall through the world there. There's
Yes, you
a spot in Shrine where you can get under the world and the first set of stairs that are fake.
Exactly. No, both of the sets of stairs in Shrine of the Storm work the exact same way. So you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, they're basically there's ways you can get under them from the side.
And I wonder if there's any world where we like spam evade, reset the Iron Hole apprentices, and run all the way through.
It's possible, but again, you're like
Maybe.
anytime you're executing a skip when you could just be killing the mobs like that, you need to kill a bunch of mobs anyways through the dungeon, so you really only want to skip the worst trash. And that the trash that is being skipped in this clip is a good example of that.
Yeah, it works out because you don't want to pull ritualists if you can help it.
All right, let's talk about Siege of Borealis. Siege of Borealis, one thing to note that we don't have footage of is there are some Warlock gateway skips here. For instance, off the boat towards Dread Captain Lockwood, you can gateway from that boat without pulling anything else there. That trash is often pulled these days as well, but not always. Sometimes that trash is skipped, and if you want to, you can get by with gateway, or you can just get by with like some people shrouding and some people jumping off with a mount and slow fall. That all those different effects. Oh, nice. We do have a clip here. Thank you. Here is this gateway skip. Actually, we do have footage now. Thanks, Melody. This is the Siege of Borealis gateway skip off of the boat. Oh, this is even a different one. That same gateway can be cast even while you're up on the boat, basically. Not quite the same angle, but if you want to skip the pack that they're in combat with here, you can skip it entirely with the gateway from the boat.
That's the same as the end of Freehold skip as well. Like you could wild charge across that with a druid. You could see Mist Potion or Slow Fall and then roll as a probably Goblin Jump, I assume.
Yeah, I've done it as Goblin Jump. Yep.
Lots of ways to jump over that gap.
Goblin Jump, very, very, very good. We do love that ability. Okay. Skip number 2 is the pack next to Lockwood, right? That is all those enemies there.
The Cannoneer and the little guys that Frontal Cleave, I can't remember their names.
Yeah, the Marauders as well, and all of those enemies. This is, you can skip just with a sap or a shroud around the side here and just fight Lockwood without any of this trash. You'll just have to fight Lockwood far over on the side. But this is a really useful strategy if you want to then like pull the spotter afterwards, but you don't want to deal with fighting it during the boss fight and the space it denies. That's the main way you'd use the skip.
Also for like lust timings, if you want to lust the boss and you had a really early lust in the dungeon on Fort Teaming, which we do on like the second pull this week, is you can get lust on cooldown again by pulling the second boss before that. And also that skip to note, you can walk straight through the Marauders and they don't care unless you tag them with something. But you do have to sap the actual bigger mobs around the Cannoneer, just like the closest one to the edge of the water. And then you can straight up walk through it without stealth.
So do you think an 11-minute lust is actually like useful in Siege of Borealis? Like,
yeah,
so you're saying that it's
on Fort, because then you get one at the start of Hadal's room, and then you also get one on Vitgoth.
But
yeah, you could get 4 lusts. It's cool. It's like not only is lust put on cooldown earlier, but also sometimes Metamorphosis might line up better if you do it that way. It depends on the group CDs as well.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, this has cooldown benefits, and it just has fighting a pack after you've fought the boss, so that you can then keep the spotter with you benefits, which are really nice. Okay, Next one we have is the like bilge rat quarter, the quarter that's been taken over by the bilge rats of Borealis. Shrouding through this area is a very common strategy, although you do have to be careful of the bananas. So this is a clip here of doing this shroud. The main thing is just watch out for those yellow bananas on the ground. If somebody hits one of those in this shroud, it's a really tight shroud in terms of time, so you need to make sure you don't do that or you'll be in trouble. That'll be the end of that. But you can get all the way through here.
Dratnos, this is called Monkey Town.
Okay.
I'm like watching myself like, man, I hope I don't hit any bananas. I'm always nervous doing that shroud because that's a long one, and you really want to dodge all the bananas on the ground, or else you might not make it.
You don't get taken out of the shroud though if you hit a banana. So
right, it's just a time issue.
Yeah,
of losing those 2 seconds. Now, it's worth noting there is a nonsense grappling hook / warlock gateway spot that you can use to get over a little bridge or a little barrier thing in Siege. If you want to learn more about that, our Siege of Borealis episode, like 15 episodes ago, we go into more depth on that, but it is worth being aware of that there's a way that you can get through. That one is particularly helpful when there's the void over on like on one of the void
in the
patterns.
Middle, right next to the second patrolling crusher, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or demolisher.
Yeah. There 2 of the 3 weeks there's a void that will interfere with this shroud.
Yeah.
And one of those 2 voids is pretty easy to get around if you do grappling hook or gateway over that terrain.
Yeah, and that was episode 16.
Yeah, episode 16 of the Titanforge podcast. You can go find our explanation of all of that there.
You can also use a 3-seater mount to hop over that barrier too. Like the rogue can go through, vanish the void, and then hop on their repair mount, and everyone can just skip the barrier by hopping on the mount, get off the mount, and then continue the...
Yeah. Okay. Temple of Citralis. There's not too much to note here. I don't think I'll even show this video because it's on YouTube, so it might be scuffed. The most important thing to be aware of in Temple is that the first shroud works better as a pre-shroud. So just shroud before you start the key, and you'll have a little bit of extra time. And the rogue will need to sap something that is currently in stealth at the start of the dungeon. One of the shrouded fangs on the left. So just they need to get in range of where it'll show up for them, and then sap it. Usually you have more than enough time to do all this. Even if you don't have a pre-shroud, you have enough time. You just don't be scared.
I would also recommend in Citralis for the second shroud of the dungeon that you're normally going to do. So you're normally skipping like the Striker, Ophidian, Marksman pack after the first boss, after you kill the rider on the bridge. A lot of groups will elect to skip that. Most of the time, especially if you're in a lower key, you're not going to have shroud available to you. I would recommend using an invisibility potion.
Yes. So Citralis has timing issues where there's 2 shrouds that are only 6 minutes apart if you are in a very high key. And in lower keys, you'll get there way too early and need to use an Invispot or something, yeah?
Yeah, we call it the low-key tax when we get to the second shroud and we still have a minute left on our shroud cooldown.
That's when we AFK. We AFK for a minute to wait for shroud. I don't know. What's the longest you've ever waited for shroud for? I think I've waited like 70 seconds for a shroud before.
I think I've waited a whole minute at least at one point, which is probably not the play.
Maybe I'm an asshole, but I don't let us wait a minute. I actually am just like, no, we're in Invispotting. Come on, let's go.
Yeah, I like to just discuss things for a little bit. Like somebody's like, okay, I have a minute on shroud, and if I really don't want to Invispot, I'll just like talk about something for a little bit, and then somebody be like, oh, should we just go? And I'll be like, well, now it's only 30 seconds, so it's probably worth waiting. So that's the strat. You just
I hate Drat though.
It's a filibuster, okay? Your goal is to keep talking until it gets down to like 30 seconds or less, and then you can, everybody can agree that it's supposed to be. You just wait for the shroud.
Yeah. While we're on the topic of pre-shrouds, I think it's worth noting that you should definitely use a pull timer before you put in the key. It's just a good habit in general for things like pre-shrouding that you want to use at the last second before the key starts, or for Metamorphosis, or for Incarnation. Any of those big cooldowns you want to have a pull timer for so that everyone gets max value out.
Okay, so speaking on timers and pre-shrouding, if you're not going to pre-shroud, but you're going to shroud as soon as the gate drops, shroud at 1 second left on the gate. Do not shroud as soon as the gate drops, because a lot of the time you'll be running up against the gate, and if there's a trash pack right there, you're going to pull it and die. So
Motherload is a good example of this, right? Like you need to shroud at 0. Or before 0. If you shroud at 0, those laborers are going to pull with the rest of the group. Or if you don't shroud early, and if people are used to that, they'll be just waiting way far back, and they'll be farther behind than they need to be. All right, let's move on to Motherlode, the research and development department. Skipping here, this is a very, very common skip that is also mandatory because of how awful this trash is. So here's footage from Trell's YouTube of the skipping in this area.
Oh no, you too.
Oh, good, it worked.
It worked. I don't worry. I tested. So druids are sneaking ahead through here. And
you can see them on the mini map.
Yeah, we'll watch this from druid perspective as well. And then that's the way around there. The tank pulls the stuff to the side, and the druid sneaks through and masses everybody on the other side. And this is very good for this department. This department is awful.
Important to note, I did not skystep only because I'm a brewmaster monk in this clip. But if I was any other tank class, I would have skystepped so that I can outrange the Mastermind's energy lash cast that comes from like early in the skip. Like there's 2 Masterminds that you could potentially be put in combat with early on. And if they connect their energy lash with you, you're going to die like a full 2 seconds sooner, like no matter what you do. So skystepping outranges their cast. In my case, I Chi Torpedo twice in a row to outrange it. And then I tagged the last pack immediately, went to the left. And then I popped probably 2 cooldowns most of the time. Maybe even Healthstone and just use everything to live for like 7 or 8 seconds.
Yeah, that's the goal, right? Is you need to live long enough for the druid to get through. If you die too early and the druid is not going to be able to get through, then it's bad times. If you have a rogue in the group, usually the rogue can get through also and vanish and B-res the druid if the druid gets in combat. So that's kind of a backup plan. Let's show the druid point of view of this. So this now is J.B's perspective of doing this exact same thing. Don't watch Tettles' stream, by the way, for how to do this. You'll see some other stuff that is not exactly how to skip this, but you go around here.
Man.
You don't fall into the water.
Okay, so something that he did that was really bad here is he popped dash early. Don't fucking do that. You hold dash literally as long as possible. You hold dash for whenever the tank is actually going to pull through. And as soon as that last trash pack of the Masterminds gets pulled, then you pop your dash and you run all the way into Rix's room. The issue is that the tank can't live this pack for very long. So if you don't have dash, I would say 80% of the time you're just going to get put into combat and die because the tank's not living long enough. Yeah,
this was back in the good old days of Infested when Blood Death Knights were the tank. So you'll see the Blood Death Knight actually lives a very long time. But if you're playing with if you're playing this in 2019 or 2020, you need to do something different there.
Yeah, that skip's going to be harder and harder in next season as well because mobs are going to keep scaling up, and tank mitigation probably not quite as much. So pop all your stuff and live for a little bit.
Alternate route. There's another way through here. This is a around the left-hand side strategy from TTV Tettles. This will work. Sometimes this is better depending on where there's a void. This gets you a little bit less far through. But you can sneak around the left here and avoid pulling the void that'll sometimes be on the right-hand side and be in the way.
You can get to the spot where they were before. I don't do it in this clip, but you can get to that spot that JB was in the previous clip.
Yeah.
So you have to wait for that Mastermind, though.
It does take a little bit longer to do this generally. But you can either then, like when you're here, you can have the tank come through and pull stuff to the right, or you can get all the way through to that original spot that that you could do, that you saw JB do. This is a good alternative depending on where the Void Emissaries are. Okay. Demon Hunters do have some special technology that they can use here as well.
Fucking delete this class. Holy shit.
Yeah, double jumps and stuff. So here's David QZ, Tettles' Demon Hunter, showing us the spicy plays here. You can do this without pulling all this stuff as well. You can get on top of this little house here. And then from here, you can get all the way onto the chimney. And then when you have this much altitude, nobody can stop you. You're flying too close to the sun. You're like Icarus.
God damn it, Random.
And after a little bit of attempts...
Yeah, okay, well, I wasn't going to re-record, I'll be honest with you. So
yeah. Eventually we get here.
This is Tettles on his Demon Hunter. He made a bunch of clips last night. Give him some credit.
Yep, on top of this.
Dude, I have to make all the fucking Demon Hunter clips. I'm like, oh, we need this. Hold on, I have to go do this on my fucking Demon Hunter.
Yeah, that gets you almost all the way there.
This pack would not be there. Like, the tank would have pulled that off to the side, so he would have made it in that instant.
Yeah. So I think you can even get over this pack, too. I think you can get all the way through with Yeah, Evade in chat says that he did it incorrectly.
Okay.
Evade is but very few. I think that a good case for a DH is making it through here if the tank is already skipping. I don't know. There's a lot of weird nonsense that DHs can do to get through everything. But it's very precise often.
Yeah, I actually didn't pull any of the trash in the first half of Motherload. I actually just got on top of the roof of one of the houses and was just flying around. It was kind of weird.
Yeah, you can basically do that everywhere in this dungeon until the VMZ, the last part. So this is the part before the last boss. This is a very common area to skip most of and then have your tank die at the end, right? So here is our footage of this. This is again from Shakib. Is after Rixa dies, you can do a partial shroud through. Often these days we'll pull one of these War Machine packs, but even if you don't, you can get through the middle of the two of them at the start. And then the next War Machine patrol, depending on what the patrol looks like, you can get through. Sometimes a bad patrol will force you to pull right then and there, but a good patrol and you can get all the way through there. And then your tank can just yeet on over to the left, grab some trash there. The rest of the group can get through, and you can mass the tank. Very good looking skip.
So if you actually have the best patrol, you can get through without using Distract at all, and then you can distract that very end War Machine, and your tank can even live if you are able to hold on to Distract for that long. Typically not advised, but it is a thing that you can do.
Yeah, it's spooky, but does work and can get you through with no deaths. This is especially easy with Double Rogue. With Double Rogue, you can be a lot slower on that. If you're trying to do that whole shroud the whole way, you have no time to stop pressing your W button. Okay, Motherload all finished here. Let's move on to our final dungeon where we have some specific clips. Tol de Gore is a dungeon where there are some weird skips going on. Not too many, not very many that aren't just the common sort of thing. But it's pretty common for the rogue to skip the first thug of the dungeon, because it's often hard to pull this thing efficiently. On some some beguiling patterns, we will actually pull this first thug up into the next trash pull. But this generally, unless there's a void there, that's not something we really bother doing. So this is how to skip this first thug from Versify's stream.
I looked at Dratnus' stream, was not happening with this. I don't know if it was just the day or not, but he was with Jacob and Corey May, and he was not having it.
Man, I died to this like twice, in a row. It was not good.
Yeah. And you died to it at both runs, too. It was like a 24 and a 23. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I was like, these aren't usable. I was like, I guess I have to go get one from Verse. Hold on.
All right, I deserve that. But yeah, that's how this skip works. Is you get in combat with everything, everybody else gets through, and then you get through and vanish. Verse does a lot of good things here that are not strictly necessary. Blinding an extra croc, grappling hook through the bars afterwards. You can do it without all those things, but those are things that do make it easier. And this is a way to do it that will be very reliable. And that I should do more often, because clearly whatever I do is not the way. I don't know. I used to be able to do this every time.
Very careful. I mean, Verse just knows how to do these without any kind of possible mistakes. Like you can see, he's very thorough in planning this out. He's very calm before he grapples. He knows he's not going to get hit by anything if he does it right.
Yeah.
Dratnus just tanked them up against the wall and got his whole group in combat.
Well, okay, one bad thing that happened to me as well is I got hit in the back when sidestepping by this croc here. Like you can see how this would happen. Like it's pretty close here after you do this pistol shot, where this croc will then maybe hit you in the back when you're out of combat. I think that's what happened to me with just like a slightly different timing on everything. So that's something you do have to watch out for there. Okay. Outside of that, there's not too much going on in Tol de Gore. There are a couple of spots where rogues can sap and blind two mobs. So if you're playing with a rogue, but without a demon hunter for some unknown reason, you can sap one of the humanoids, blind the other one, and then the rogue gets in combat with the blinded one. The rest of the group can run through without getting in combat, and the rogue can vanish after everybody's through and drop combat that way. That's a pretty common strategy. Before we had DHs. Now that we have DHs, we're usually just sap imprisoning the first two and pulling the second two with the bridge pull. So it's not actually a common Season 3 strategy, but who knows what it'll look like in Season 4. We might be skipping that again the same way. Outside of that is all of the specific skips that we have marked down here. I think we've gotten through all of the ones that we remembered. Do let us know if there's anything that you have seen that we missed, and we will maybe cover it next episode. For now, let's move on to our Q&A. Tettles, do you want to start off by maybe plugging our Titanforge trivia survey again?
Yeah, okay. So next, the 28th, I believe. Yeah, that'll be Trell's birthday, by the way, but it won't be live. We will be airing a special segment of Titanforge trivia hosted by Squishy. The questions, you can give some participation inside of our Discord. In some of the top text channels, there will be titled Titanforge Trivia. There's also a Titanforge Trivia Help channel, I believe, in which you can also type questions to Squishy. Don't message Trell, Dratnus, or myself. We can't really look at the questions, or at least we shouldn't be.
Yeah, I have been, but neither of you guys should. I'm trying to just do some practice, do some test prep.
Cheater.
It will be a lot of fun, I must say. So yeah, go check those out. We also do have Patreon exclusive ones if you guys would like to participate in that as well. So there we go.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good time. All right, let's move on to our Q&A segment. This one comes from Andy in Discord. Say I'm a rogue and I want to pull mobs aside and vanish. What hots and buffs from my party members will put them in combat when I pull? Do hots only get the healer in combat if they actually heal me? I usually click off everything that's sourced from anybody else in my party, just to be safe. I don't actually. I know sometimes you can be fine with hots on yourself. I think like if the druid is in stealth, for instance, they'll usually be fine. But I still just don't want to mess around with it, so I click off all my hots. In fact, on Tournament Realm, we did the skip out of Volkal's room where I would click off my hots to get through after a sap blind, and I put that keybind where on live my engineering belt, which was a shield at the time, was. And then in the next dungeon we did, where I got fixated by 3 feral bloodswarmers at once, I panicked and I pressed my engineering shield bind, which was not an engineering shield bind. It actually canceled all 5 of the different Resto Druid hots that were on me at the time, including Cenarian Ward. So that's if you do have a bind to cancel all your hots, you do have to be very careful to not press it, especially not when fixated by 3 feral bloodswarmers. That's bad. That will do bad things to you. Another thing to note is that group members who scroll or battle shout or those kind of effects will also get in combat with you, or with the mobs that you're in combat with. So be very, very careful to not scroll if anybody is doing a skip of some kind.
I swear to God, Trell dies more to this than anybody else I've ever seen. He is the most notorious person. Oh fuck, I scrolled.
Yeah.
Okay. I watch my party members' attack power scroll pretty close, and when I respawn, I'll scroll sometimes, and now and then I do put myself in combat because of that, unfortunately. Although it can be used to your benefit as well. Like if the whole group's wiping in Waycrest, and you happen to die first as the tank, you can put yourself back in combat and make sure the pack doesn't reset by scrolling and getting back in combat from like a mile away.
Yeah, this is true. All right, next question comes from Jason XD Rothel on Twitter. What skills and other factors are most important when trying to discover new skips? When do you break from a standard to discover a new skip or route? Is this done enough outside the MDI, or is the MDI the engine that drives innovation in M+, once patterns are established? Trell, what do you think of this one?
That was tough to answer. Like I know back in Legion, I learned almost all my information from MDI skips. Like I think a lot of the meta happened from the MDI, and then this time in BFA, I think most of the skips are discovered outside of the MDI and then done completely different. I think mostly because Shadow Meld's a thing in MDI, and people can just do a completely different set of skips and much easier in that tournament rather than in live keys most of the time.
Yeah,
but I'm not sure. It's like half and half in my experience at least.
So for what it seems like to me, skips a lot of the times can be done outside of just like the live run, like sans void skips, right? Like void skips are a little bit different, and those are obviously people are still suck ass at them, so not exactly the most useful things. But a lot of times the skips will actually be done outside of the runs. I feel like a lot of the innovation from the MDI actually comes in terms of like your pathing and like which packs you're pulling when, and just like the syntax of when you're pulling what pack. I think that is the most important element that we get from the MDI, not the skips. Because like you said, in Legion, the MDI was a big seller of how to do the world's largest Nelth layer pull and how to do the fucking whole entire Blackrock Cold Hallway in one pull and stuff like that.
Yeah, Maw of Souls in 3 minutes or whatever the time ended up being on that
What
thing.
is my 8-minute Maw?
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that, yeah.
Cardnark in Twitch chat asks, is there a reason we didn't go over the mount skip on the middle void from a few weeks ago in Ataldazar? That's a good one that we didn't have here, but it's worth noting, yeah, when there's that void near the middle, you can get a perfect edge jump around the side and avoid pulling it entirely. So, I mean, we obviously don't have footage of that right now, but the way around it is just jumping at as shallow of an angle as you can to get around the side there. Okay, let's get the next question here. Are there any websites, kind of like tanknotes.com, but for M+? Like, I'm a tank that is starting to get into that plus 15 realm, and I'm trying to figure out what dungeons are physical damage heavy versus magic damage heavy, or like this boss does a nasty magic cast, so you may want to switch your edicts to magic absorption, etc. Thanks in advance.
I'll take that one. That's definitely a tank question. So freehold is like almost all physical damage most of the time, except when it's bursting or when it has tides and lots of the pulls that you're going to do. So, I mean, after this season, it'll just be bursting again, but I would go full physical defense build for freehold and largely a Taldazar as well, except for like on Brewmaster, you have the choice of taking the talents Dampen Harm or Bob and Weave, right? You would take Bob and Weave if there's no magic damage. But in a Taldazar, there's one really nasty damage source that Dampen Harm is really good for, and that's the Razan Bleed. So I actually only play Bob and Weave in freehold. Every other dungeon has significant magic damage that I would take Dampen Harm for as that tank class.
Yeah, as a Brewmaster, you're basically never switching your edict to magic, right? Like, that's...
Well, actually, yeah, I was going to tag along and mention that as well. I only switched my edict to magic on the last two bosses of Motherlode. They do get value out of being physical on those because of stagger, but I think magic actually prevents one-shots, so magic edict is probably the way to go.
Yeah, and you'll have lost your fanaticism anyways from the death skip. I think if you weren't to lose your fanaticism, you'd want to keep it on physical. Like if you're Shadow Melt skipping there, and you can keep the full size shield even. Yeah, for prop warriors, going on magic is a more common thing to do than it is for other tank specs. But even then, I would probably keep it on physical for almost all cases, except for like Shadow Zool and last two bosses of Motherlode, just because if you have it on magic, there's a good chance your fanaticism will fall off, and so you'll lose HPS throughout the course of the dungeon, and because your absorb will then be smaller. Okay, next question comes from actually to answer that question finally, is there a website like that? No, there's not. There's not a website that tells you what to do in all the dungeons as a tank. Somebody could create it. It would be good.
Right. Man, that'd be a lot of work.
Yeah, that's the thing. You have to keep it updated every season, and like metas update.
Half the shit we just don't know is like,
like,
dude, Grease Gun's physical. Who the fuck knows that Grease Gun is physical? Like, there's so few people that know that.
Mm-hmm. All right, next one here is at Bizambata. I recently started using Ancestral Protection Totem for some damage reduction, especially when we don't have a B-Res. But even then, I'm not quite sure how to execute... Oh, for Death Run. Okay, DR is Death Run. I read it as damage reduction. Okay, for Death Run. When I'm not a Druid or have Meld and APT, and the battle res is somewhere else in the group, so your goal if you're using APT is to drop it right before you die. That's generally the most important thing to do. So try and die first and drop an APT for yourself is a good strategy. But yeah, outside of that, like, it is just sketchier. It's more likely to go wrong than other death runs.
And like we were saying earlier, Gnomish Army Knife, using the unstable temporal, whatever, time shifter, whatever the hell the item's actually called, putting that on classes that have an invis, such as Vanish, Meld, Feign Death, all of those, that would make those a little bit less sketchy, but it's still going to be rough, right?
Okay, question in chat here about InkPod. How come certain classes like a DH use it in high M plus keys, but you never see Rets or Unholies run it? Do either of you guys know the answer to this one? I think I might have an idea.
I don't, actually.
I think it's just that, like, those specs have better alternatives, like just getting like a Butcher's Block, or, you know, Ret has really good synergy with like Vile in their wings and stuff.
Well, I think it also comes down to burst damage versus consistent.
Well, and haste as well, right? Like specs that stack haste, like DH gets very high haste much of the time from Furious Gaze, and that means that they'll stack up a bunch of extra stacks of Ink Pod throughout the fight, right?
Yeah, I mean, dude, Demon Hunter actually with Purification Protocol does like a time and a half more than any other class just with the minor because of how much haste they have.
Right, with
Yeah, that's a good
Furious Gaze and Meta both giving them huge amounts of haste. So those are that's a reason you'll see DH run it over specs like Ret and Unholy, for whom haste isn't a good stat in M+.
Or according to Twitch chat, nobody brought the Ret and Unholy to raid, so they didn't get the ink pod.
that is certainly part of the effect. That certainly is. There's some truth to that.
Lucky.
All right, next question comes from Loki on Discord, who says, I murdered a 16 2-chest this teaming week by multiple death skips fails in the teaming R&D wing. I can't wait to listen to your podcast about this increased damage skip during teaming week. My fails were probably good timing. Just to check with you guys that your show today is going to cover the harder versions of these skips. Okay, yeah, so basically like how to deal with that skip even with teaming. I think the main thing that we mentioned there is the sky step on the tank to avoid getting hit by the energy lash. Like that's going to be the main thing that messes up that skip in the R&D wing. And as we showed you, the skip around the left for the stealther, if you want to get past the void and get far ahead of the group that way. Those are the two main fixes to dying in that skip.
Yeah, I would be willing to sky step mid combat, like especially in these big skips where it's really dangerous for you to survive longer than like 5 seconds. I would sky step mid combat during that skip just to avoid the energy lashes and make it super safe, because you don't necessarily need the extra damage on that next boss. You just need to survive the skip, right, for your group. And then I would also pop like every cooldown known to man that you have and just tell your healer, hey, I have nothing on pull for this boss because I just used it to live this skip.
Yeah. I think a lot of the time people aren't popping enough defensives in order to be able to live the skip, live skips long enough, because especially for Rixa Flux Flame, that is a very dangerous mob. So you want to hold on to as much as you possibly can. It's like the same issue that people end up having on Soulbound Goliath. Soulbound Goliath is low on health, so you really don't want to reset him. Yet you also don't really want to use any defensives because you're about to pull a pack afterwards. It's like the same thing. You don't really want to use any defensives while you're doing the death run, but you're going to have to, especially whenever you're pulling like 3 masterminds.
Yeah, basically it's better to just use the defensive there. You'll be fine in Rixa. I mean, you might not be fine. Rixa's a hard-hitting fight, but like you need the defensives to get to her, and they'll come back up. Just they'll come off cooldown soon enough. All right, next question comes from Evan in Twitch chat. How do you avoid tilt when pugging your keys? Tettles, what is your answer to no tilt in pug keys?
I mean, for me, I think I'm probably too far in the camp of I just don't care. Like whenever I'm pugging a key, I just will remove the level of I don't care if this gets chested or depleted. This isn't my main source of enjoyment. In general, whenever I'm pushing higher level keys and stuff like that, the way that I personally avoid tilt is I'm normally okay if I'm playing well. I don't focus on what other people are doing. I focus solely on myself, and if I'm playing fine, then I won't be tilted. If I'm playing like shit, I will probably tilt myself more than anything else, though. And how to avoid that is, I don't know.
Yeah, try and play good. I'm the same way. If I'm making mistakes, I'm very susceptible to like being angry at myself, but I'm not going to be angry at other members of the group for making mistakes. And in pugs, I just don't care about what happens. I never am joining a pug with like an assumption that things are going to go well. I'm kind of always just like doing it for fun or for memes or for a weekly.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the approach you have to have whenever you're joining a pug. Is like you just don't. Your expectations are just so fucking low because it's like a random group out of LFG. You don't expect to slaughter the dungeon and get tens of IO and whatever else, right? You just expect to get your weekly key, no levers.
Somebody in chat says, I imagine most people tilt when they do super good, but the pugs are playing bad. For me, that's just like I never expect the pugs to play well. Like that's just a road to disappointment. I never even expect my friends to play. Like if I'm playing with my friends and they make a mistake, I also am like not gonna. That doesn't make me tilted either. It's only me making mistakes that will tilt me.
I am so quick to give other people mulligans. If I'm playing like shit, I will be upset with myself.
Yeah, it's
yeah, so that's the right mindset to have for sure.
It depends. Like that's not natural for everybody, right? Like it's natural to expect things of other people, but the less you can do of it, the better time you'll have, especially if you're pugging, because in pugs they'll just let you down all the time. Okay, another question here, final one for today, is about what meta shifts we're expecting next season, mostly in the tank department. For me, my prediction for next season is Prot Warrior best by a noticeable amount, all 5 of the other tanks about the same. Trell, what do you think the meta is going to look like next season?
Close to that. I think the only thing for sure is that Prot Warrior is going to be probably the best tank. I think Brewmaster, Prot Paladin, Vengeance, maybe even Blood DK, Guardian. Yeah, I think they're all kind of like in the iffy B tier area, but they're all good.
I would rate them in that order. So I would say Guardian and Blood are the two most likely to be weaker than the rest. Tettles, what about you? What do you think the tank meta might look like next season?
I actually believe that Prot Pally is going to be a little bit.
Ooh.
They're probably going to be a little bit ahead of the pack. I know that there's some people that think Blood Death Knight's going to be super sick in Mythic Plus, but I don't fully expect that. I think it's just going to be like Prot Warrior, and then like Prot Pally is a little bit below that, and then everything else is just like it's based on who the player is, not necessarily the spec, which is what we've actually seen a lot of this expansion. It hasn't, like, sure, Brewmaster, Monk, and Prot Warrior are enabling people to be able to do 25s this season, but dude, 24s is done on every single other tank spec. It is by far doable. You're just going to have differing challenges and knowing how to overcome some of the obstacles that you would otherwise not face whenever you're watching some of your favorite streamers is pretty good.
Why Prot Warrior? Bigger damage than everybody else. Emissary of the Tides is going away, which means that the fact that you're very squishy against it and the fact that you don't have Ring of Peace against it is no longer a problem. Brewmaster is getting a pretty big nerf that is going to hurt them in Mythic Plus much more than in Raid. And sure. Spell Reflect is still super OP and is also good against some of the Awakened stuff. So
they're also removing Tides emissaries.
Yeah, Tides is really rough for Prot Warriors. That going away is nice, and it means that they'll be able to like Conflict and Strife Major in a world without Tides as well means that they can just like full control packs and never get hit by them basically. If they're slowed, it's kind of nasty all the stuff they can do in that world. I do think that all the tanks are going to be fairly close though. I think that it won't be like balance we've seen in like, you know, healers or range DPS where the bad specs are not viable or brought to high keys. Like, I think that any good player playing a tank will be able to do reasonably high content. I would expect to see almost all brown for the actual like 26s or whatever the highest keys are next season.
Yeah, I think that's the major discrepancy that we have to say is that for cutting edge stuff, you're probably only going to see exclusively Prot Warrior. For everything else, dude, like even like one key level below, yeah. Whereas
like, you know, with specs like healer specs, like you get like 3 key levels below before you start seeing the others, right? So it's going to be closer than that, I'd say.
I think we're only going to start seeing the Prot Warriors rise toward the middle and the end of the season, because in Raid they're going to be pretty bad, it looks like. And so we're going to have to wait till people clear the Raid, kind of hop on their Warrior alts, get geared up. Some of us may like start on Warriors and hinder our Raid from the beginning. Not saying who.
Shit, hold on. Not my take.
But
yeah, I agree, right? That's the people who've been talking about Blood and keys probably just heard people hyped about Blood for Raid and extrapolated, but it does not to me look like it'll be good in keys.
Dude, I expect them to just get fucking 100 to 0 still. Like, what's going to stop them from getting...
Yeah.
Like, dude, they're not getting one shot by Tides. Like, so Prot Warrior is bad. Like, not bad, but Prot Warrior is worse this season because they're getting 100 to 0 by Tides. Blood Death Knight's not getting 100 to 0 by Tides. Blood DK is getting 100 to 0 by trash packs.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Anything
Same
like
with
that.
Guardian Druid.
All right. Next question is about healers. Healer balance. Let's cover this a little bit because I think since we talked about tanks, we may as well do healers as well. So healer news that we have coming. My guess next season that the metagame is going to be still Resto Druid on top. I think it would be rough to make any guess besides that. But I think that Holy Paladin and Mistweaver are going to be creeping up there. Holy Paladin in an absence of Tides emissaries and Enchanted emissaries, and with the extra scaling of 30 item levels helping them more than any other spec, I think we'll be creeping up on Resto Druid. And Mistweaver with the healing throughput buffs, I think will be enough to also bring them up there. And the fact that you're not going to bring a piece from a Brewmaster anymore and Mystic Touch from a Brewmaster anymore, I think that's going to be a pretty substantial contribution now brought by the Mistweaver.
All right, I expect Mistweaver and Resto Druid to be on the same tier, and I expect Holy Pally to be better.
Okay, that's a hot take.
They're buffing Mistweaver Monk.
Yep.
Okay, so they're buffing Mistweaver Monk. They're nerfing Resto Druid damage by a fairly significant amount. Holy Pally, and like you said, they're removing Beguiling, so it's way easier to be able to afford bringing something that's not a Resto Druid. I feel fairly confident that Holy Pally is going to be the best, and then Mistweaver and Resto Druid are going to be on the same tier. All three will be playable, though. Mm-hmm. You will be able to play whatever you want.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I think H-Pal could actually get past Resto Druid personally as well. But the Mistweaver problem is like they're going to be good in certain situations where Resto Druid is not, and then Resto Druid is probably going to be still better than Mistweaver in lots of situations where Mistweaver is not. Just like strength and weaknesses of Brewmaster versus Prot Warrior this tier. I don't know. That, like we said, they could all be very good.
All I'm gonna say is, dude, if we're bringing in the off meta healers, it's increasing the stock of Moonkin. That's all I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
Too.
So best comps for next season. Okay, let's just put out our predictions right now for the comp that has the highest timed key next season. All right.
Okay.
My guess: Protection Warrior.
Okay.
Holy Paladin.
So it has to be Zamak, right?
It could be, yeah, it could be. Ellesmere.
Has to be Zamak or Ellesmere, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Ellesmere.
that's one of the two of them.
Prot Warrior, Holy Paladin, Windwalker Monk, Outlaw Rogue.
Then you pick a third melee.
I'm gonna take
Well, I bet that week's not raging, so probably not Boom.
You don't bring the Windwalker Monk. Yeah.
All right, just give me a Havoc DH then, I guess. Yeah. Give me a Havoc DH and whatever. If we play 5 melee, yeah, I'm fine with it. It'll be it'll work. It'll be Toldegor, and that will be fine. That comp is fine in Toldegor.
Yeah, I think it'll be Toldegor.
What is your anybody got a disagreement there? So that's Prot Warrior, Holy Pally, Rogue, Windwalker, Havoc is my bet.
You said Toldegor? I don't know if I believe that it'll be Toll.
Yeah, obviously we're not going to go to Siege of Paralysis Evade. That would be ridiculous. Or Freehold. Freehold and Siege are the 5 melee closed dungeons.
Shit. I'm trying to think. What actually is affected the most by the Awakened effects? Like, what can you actually cheese the most with it? Because there may be an underrot, there may be an underrot variant where the dungeon is just so open every single week that you're able to play it all the time.
What about check this comp out? Like 2 fire mages, and you just pull 3 lieutenants with the last boss and kill them in 1 combustion.
Dude, okay. I don't know if you played.
Yeah.
I don't know if you played the fixed Stratos, but that is absolutely not doable.
Okay,
no
your
way.
healer is a Mistweaver monk who revivals all the first round of curses and poisons or whatever, and then it's all dead in 1 combust.
I don't think it's gonna die on 1 combust. I think it might get them to half health on like a 26 next season.
All right. Anyways,
3 fire mages. 3 fire mages.
Oh my god!
Now it's dead in 1 combust.
My prediction for the
first full, you don't have any kicks.
My prediction for the comp, I believe it's going to be Prot Warrior, Holy Pally, double Outlaw Rogue, and a Fire Mage. And it's going to be
okay. I like that.
It's going to be a European team. I think it's going to be the Dr. J Zamak crew.
Okay, I think a safe bet is just to bet on those guys, even if you don't think the comp is necessarily like BIS, just because they are BIS. Trell, let's hear. Do you have any calls you'd like to make?
No, I pretty much agree with that. I have no idea. There's always so much new things that are going to happen in a new season with scaling and new trinkets and new affix and everything. You just have no idea.
No combat res? Yeah, I mean, there some of the top runs this season have been no B-res. If you look at the Holy Pally groups that have timed so far, they've actually, I've been surprised by this, but they're just going commando without a B-res.
Dude, Korea, for some reason, Koreans love Holy Pally plus Moonkin too. I don't fucking understand that one. That one confuses me, but maybe they'll show up and fucking do some weird shit. Oh, dude, I guess it's hard to count out the Chinese groups too.
Yeah, because they got the 26 this season, right?
Yeah, they got the 26. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't even know what that comp was.
No, it was double Rogue Demon Hunter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
sounds like a good comp. Yeah.
Someone actually posted a VOD in some Discord I was in the other day. Someone found a VOD.
And you watched that?
Nasda uploaded it to YouTube.
The number 5 fastest Toldegor 20, or sorry, the 4th fastest Toldegor 25 this season was done completely free, no B-resing. Brewmaster, Holy Pally, Double Rogue, Havoc. So playing without a B-res is a fairly common strategy actually for the high Holy Pallies. They're just YOLOing it out there. But yeah, Balance Druid very popular in the Korean meta for it.
Yeah, who knows? I think you're going to most likely see one ranged in typically with the comps, but I think the Awakened effects is so up in the air that I think it would slot better with double Outlaw Rogue with a Protection Warrior and a Holy Pally. So who knows?
Yeah, we may do a whole episode on meta predictions and Awakened stuff soon, so that'll be, we'll save the rest of this discussion for then. But for now, I think that's going to do it. That'll end our Q&A segment and our episode. We hope you guys have enjoyed this little look at Mythic Plus skips. Again, do let us know the ones we missed, because we certainly have missed some. And if you tweet us clips of extra skips, we'll retweet them or whatever, or reply to them and add them all to a thread or something. I don't really know how Twitter works, but we'll do some Twitter thing to them. But yeah, for now, that's going to do it for us. Thanks everybody for watching. We will be not live next week or the week afterwards. We will have pre-recorded content on the feeds then. We will be back for our first podcast. Our next live podcast will be on Saturday the 4th. And until then, everything will just be on the YouTubes and the audio feeds. Thanks everybody for watching. Bye.
Thanks, guys.